There's a war happening right now, but it's not being fought with soldiers or tanks. Nope. It's a quiet, relentless battle waged in settlement ledgers and on central bank balance sheets. And it is completely rewiring the entire architecture of global finance. So let's break down exactly what's going on. In 2022, when Russia was basically cut out of the global financial system, it sent a pretty chilling message to the rest of the world. And that message was, your money is only your money if we say so. You better believe central banks everywhere took note. They realized that depending on a single system for your national survival, well, that's just not a viable strategy anymore. The stakes here could not be higher. The real heart of this conflict isn't something you're going to see debated on the nightly news. It's a very technical, very methodical war being fought by technocrats. And it all boils down to a fundamental 65-year-old paradox that's baked right into the US dollar itself. It's called the Triffin dilemma. You see, the world needs a constant supply of dollars to buy and sell things, right? But the U.S. Federal Reserve, its job is to manage inflation and employment right here in America. So when the Fed raises interest rates to cool down the U.S. economy, it accidentally starves the rest of the world of dollars, and that creates massive instability everywhere else. This isn't some grand conspiracy theory, it's just math. And this isn't just a theory, this is the real-world pain of that dilemma. When the US dollar got stronger back in 2024, the Mexican peso collapsed by 16% in a single year. That's a direct, painful hit to an entire nation's economy, all driven by policy decisions made thousands of miles away. And for global businesses, the cost is just as staggering. I mean, one bad currency swing can completely wipe out an entire year's worth of profit. For just a small slice of the Fortune 2000 companies, that went a collective loss of $22.7 billion in one quarter, all because of these currency swings. So you might be asking, how do countries fight back against this? Well, for decades, they've used a standard playbook. But here's the thing. In today's world, those old strategies aren't just failing, they're actually starting to do more harm than good. Okay, so here's where the old textbook solution completely falls apart. The theory says you just hike your interest rates to defend your currency. But in reality, like we saw in Turkey and Brazil, it's like trying to treat a bullet wound with an aspirin. You end up torturing your own domestic economy just to stabilize the currency for a couple of months. It's economic self-harm. So when rate hikes fail, what's next? Well, then you pull out the last resort nuke, capital controls. You just ban money from leaving the country. But all that does is signal to the entire world that you've completely lost confidence in your own currency. It's basically admitting defeat, and you can be sure the markets will price that in immediately. And the final tool in the old, rusty toolbox? Just burning through your savings. You start selling off your emergency reserves of US dollars to prop up your own currency. As India saw back in 2024. Yeah, it works for a little bit, but the math is just unsustainable. It's like emptying your emergency account to pay the phone bill. Sooner or later, you just run out of money. But here's the really interesting part. The countries that are winning today, they're not using these broken tools. They're not building walls, they're building bridges. They are architecting a fundamentally smarter way to fight back, shifting from brute force to, well, strategic positioning. And at the core of this whole new strategy is a playbook built on 4 key ideas. You'll sometimes hear it called the IR4X framework. It's really a multi-pronged approach that repositions a country's defenses from being reactive and painful to being proactive and resilient. So what's it all about? Well, it really rests on 4 key pillars. Managing your reserves way smarter, building brand new payment systems that go beyond the dollar, making it possible to trade directly in your own local currencies, and giving your companies the advanced tools they need to hedge their risks. Let's dig into a couple of these to see how they're changing the game. For decades, pretty much all international payments have run on this one single slow rail, the SWIFT system. And it takes 2 to 3 days to settle a single transaction. It's the standard, sure, but it's also a major bottleneck and a single point of control. Now compare that to these new multi-rail systems like mBridge. This is a platform where central banks can settle transactions directly with each other in just 7 seconds. 7. Look, this isn't just about being faster. This makes the dollar an option, not an obligation. And that fundamentally breaks the old trap. So to see how this new playbook actually works in the real world, let's look at India. Seriously, the country is executing this strategy almost perfectly. It's a masterclass in modern currency defense. When the rupee came under attack in late 2025, the old India would have just hiked rates. But the new India? Oh, they did something far more sophisticated.
They intervened subtly in the offshore forward markets. Basically, they placed bets on the future value of their own currency, but outside their own borders. This is a perfect example of that first pillar, strategic treasury rebalancing. It signaled incredible strength and psychologically broke the speculators, all without a big, costly public fight. And at the exact same time, India was executing on pillar number 3, local currency trade. Just look at this example with Brazil. By cutting the dollar out as the middleman, they could save nearly $500 million in conversion fees on $10 billion of trade. That's real money that now stays within their own economies, directly helping their businesses and their people. And here's the political genius of their strategy. They're not out there shouting that they're de-dollarizing or starting a crusade. No, they're framing it as being pro-business, pro-efficiency. It's a simple message of convenience and cutting costs, which is just so much smarter and way less confrontational. So, when you zoom out, what does all this really mean? It means we are entering a brand new era of global finance. For the first time in 80 years, countries and companies are moving from a world of obligation to a world of options. And if you want to see just how fast things are moving, all you have to do is look at the oil trade. I mean, oil has been the bedrock of the dollar system for decades. In 2020, almost none of it was settled in other currencies. By 2023, that number had jumped to 20%. That is a seismic shift in a tiny amount of time. The key takeaway here is pretty simple. In this new multipolar currency world, you just can't afford to be complacent anymore. Being proactive, being adaptive, building strategic resilience, that's what separates the countries that thrive from the ones that become cautionary tales. And let's be super clear here. The end goal for these nations isn't to kill the dollar, not at all. It's to build a more resilient financial ecosystem where the dollar is a powerful option, but not a mandatory obligation. It's a move away from a fragile monoculture to a more diverse and ultimately more stable financial world. This quiet revolution is reshaping global finance in real time. For almost a century, the dollar's dominance felt permanent, almost like a law of physics. So I think the most important question for the next decade is this: what happens when it finally becomes a choice?